right, calling up Dennis Phillips at his home in Palm Harbor. He has a weather center at his house where he has been tracking this. I don't even know if he's. What was that?
That was a weird thing.
I never heard. I never heard. Never heard that before. That was interesting.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Dennis Phillips, ABC Action News, chief meteorologist, and a special edition of Dennis Phillips Live, MJ edition. Hey, Dennis, welcome back.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're doing well. Hey, we've had your colleague Greg D on several times this morning. Very informative, so our thanks for that.
Awesome.
Yep. All right, what do you want to start with?
It's up to 100 miles an hour now. Latest advisory brings it up. Pressure's dropping. Pretty much doing as expected. I mean, I've been saying this for a couple of days now that I don't think we see hurricane force winds in the Bay Area. I just don't. I don't think anything, based on the current track there. And Greg mentioned this. I don't know if he talked to you guys about it, but him and I have been talking about it the last few minutes. So the official NHC track is, still just to the east of Tallahassee. But the GFS and the Euro are bringing it a little bit more to the east. I mean, at this point, the models, it's kind of like you throw the models out the window and you look out the window because they're not going to really do much. There's not going to be much change either way. But, we've been saying this for a while, that the worst of the wind is still about maybe 5 to 8 miles away from the center, right? So if the center of that storm is 15, 20 miles east of Tallahassee, the worst of the wind will be just at and just to the right of that center. So, I think there's at least a decent chance that extreme area of winds would be in a more rural part of Taylor County. I mean, west of Perry, but boy, it's still pretty close. And again, that's just kind of based on what the models are saying right now. But at this point in time, things are kind of going as expected. Our bigger concern is the surge. The winds it's going to be windy today, but it's not going to be anything crazy. And again, I think we stick with winds gusting 65, maybe Citrus County 70, but most areas just not going to have to deal with that. It's going to be the surge more than anything else.
Do you think that the surge, again, 4 to 7 for Manatee, Sarasota, 5 to 8 for Hillsborough, Pinellas, 8 to 12 for Pasco, Hernando, Citrus, where do you think we're going to fall? Do you think we're going to even get to the bottom of that, or the middle, or the top end prediction?
I mean, I'm going to defer to the Hurricane Center's prediction on this in terms of, because I don't want people to hear it say, oh, well, they're saying this, but he's saying this, and I like him, so I'm not going to go anywhere. I mean, that's always a slippery slope. But what I said yesterday, and I'm going to stick to it, those numbers that you just quoted, they're the most reasonable worst-case scenario. I think that's so important. It's not just, it's just not lip service. I mean, that is what the Hurricane Center says. When they put those numbers out, they are giving the most reasonable worst-case scenario. And I argue this often. How many times do we get the worst-case scenario? We do from time to time, but usually it's somewhere in between. I mean, that's life. It's usually somewhere between best case and worst case, right? So historically, when you look at those numbers that they predict, they're usually more on the left side of that worst case. There might be a few spots that are going to get that high number. Do I think the entire area will be on the right side of those numbers? In other words, the highest numbers? I don't, because it usually doesn't work that way. It might one or two spots pick up extreme numbers like that? Yes. And who's going to see that? You just never know. You don't know. But yeah, MJ, I would say on that 5 to 8, the majority will be closer to 5 to 6, and there's going to be a few that are going to be up to 8. I think that's usually the way that it works, and I suspect this one will probably be the same.
Michelle, my lovely wife, just sent me a text that a weather guy in Gainesville is predicting that Helene will turn east and hit a county above where my sister-in-law lives. She lives in Chiefland, which is, Levy County. So there's some weather guy in Gainesville saying that he thinks it's going to turn and hit Dixie County?
I mean, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, at this point, you don't even really look at the models anymore. You just kind of track it. And Taylor County is one up. You've got Dixie County, you've got Levy, you've got Dixie, you've got Taylor, and that's, again, pretty close to the area that got hit last year with the Dahlia.
Yep.
So anything's possible. I don't know this guy. I couldn't tell you, but I prefer to go with, what we've been going with in the Hurricane Center. I mean, I don't know.
This guy sounds like a rube.
Right. Hey,
but look, if at this point you just kind of look at it and see which way it's going, and I definitely think I will agree this, and like we're saying, it's better news for Tallahassee based on the current track. It is.
Listen, if you can move further east and put Tallahassee on the non-dirty side, on the left side of this thing, then that's much better. Oh, incident. Michelle just texted me again. Gainesville TV 20 is saying that even though the National Weather Service says it's hitting east of Appalachia Bay, the models that he is looking at thinks that it's going to be a Taylor County landfall. So some dude, Skippy the weather guy in Gainesville, that's his prediction.
Well, I mean, that's what we just said.
Yeah.
I just said Taylor County.
Yep.
I mean, yeah,
yep.
I think I just said that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I was just saying what Michelle just texted me. Hey, so, one of the things that kind of creeps you out, and, obviously this is to get attention, is the National Hurricane Center saying that the surge up on the Gulf Coast near the Big Bend, wherever this makes landfall, whether it is Dixie, whether it's Taylor, wherever this makes landfall, for the National Hurricane Center to say that the surge is going to be, in all caps, unsurvivable for those that want to, hey, I'm going to ride it out. Thoughts on that?
I think that's why they do it. I think they do it to get the attention, to let people know this is a serious storm, and you cannot run from the water. You can run from the water, you can hide from the wind, and it's the old expression we've used over and over again. And I really believe that they sometimes go that route to remind people just how bad with this kind of a thing. I do think they kind of deal in worst case scenario, because they don't want somebody saying, I didn't know how bad it's going to be. I believe that completely, because that's the worst thing that they could hear. I didn't know it was going to be this bad. I thought it was going to be this bad. I think they would rather err on the side of caution. I can't speak to the NHC, but doing this for a long time and seeing how their verbiage is and what they do, I think they want really to give that worst case scenario. And you know what? If it isn't as bad as they're forecasting, that's okay for them, because maybe that got people out, and otherwise they would have stayed. But yeah, I mean, I'll say it again. Historically, we don't hit those worst case numbers. And for a couple of days now on the air, I've been saying, you say a 5 to 8. Typically, the 5 is more reasonable. The 8 is the higher end worst case scenario, and I think they're okay with that message if it gets people to safety and out of harm's way.
Denis Phillips, chief meteorologist, ABC Action News, is with us with a special MJ Morning Show edition of Denis Phillips Live. And I think it's important to mention again that with surge, that 100 deaths because of surge was attributed to Ian at Fort Myers Beach.
Yeah, and that was one of the situations where I think everybody thought that storm was going to be farther north for a good long period of time. And even though there was probably 24 hours of messaging that it was going to be closer, at that point, it's kind of too late for people to leave. I mean, I think that's what happened for a lot of folks. Either it was too late, or the traffic was too bad, or they're like, well, you know what, I'm just going to ride it out now because I don't have anywhere to go, because I haven't made any plans. I'd rather stay at home and hope for the best. And it was tragic. And, that's what they did not want to happen again. I think the Hurricane Center is doing a great job of, saying, look, this is the worst case possible. This is what you need to prepare for. And if you leave, so be it. You come back, and if they get a little bit of grief because it wasn't as bad as they were forecasting, I think they're okay with that.
Hey, Denis, do you mind now when you do DPL and you stream on YouTube and particularly on Facebook, you take questions, and people on Facebook are just loading up the questions. And when I go onto Facebook, and I watched you on Facebook Live, Denis Phillips Live last night, and the questions are firing off like a machine gun, like 1,000 rounds a minute. I mean, it's like did. So, do you mind if we grab some phone calls here and do Ask Dennis, and I can conference in some of our listeners? Do you mind if we take some calls?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, let's do it. 800-990-1047. Would you like to talk to Dennis Phillips, Chief Meteorologist, ABC Action News? If you'd like to ask Dennis a question, 800-990-1047 gets you in. 800-990-1047. What do you want to ask Dennis Phillips right now? This is a rare opportunity. 800-990-1047, and we'll conference call you right in with Dennis Phillips right now. Our first question comes from Roxanne. Hello, Roxanne. Welcome.
Hi, Dennis. Roxanne in Tampa.
Hey, Roxanne.
I live in Westchase. If Tampa receives 5 to 8 foot storm surge off the Gulf Beach or from within the bay, how far inland does that travel, miles and depth? I know that's very specific.
Well, from the bay itself, I mean, I would not expect it to be a tremendously far amount inland. I don't. I mean, I know you see those giant signs when you're driving toward Westchase. If you get a surge, it could be this high when you get to this point, and that'll get your attention. But I think, will you see some water build up in some spots? Yeah, but do I think it's going to be anything that's going to be, overly dramatic? I don't. I think, Oldsmar and over toward Westchase is kind of a unique area. It's right at the end of the bay, at the top of it right there. And I just think, based on how far it is offshore and everything else, I think I'm more on the lower end. I'm more on the 4 to 5 foot probably. And the amount that it went inland is not going to be much different than it was with the Dahlia, I think.
Got it. Thanks.
Do you think the Skyway is going to close with winds hitting 40?
It's a close call, probably. I mean, for a brief period of time. I mean, we've already had tornado warnings out there this morning. We've actually have one right now, I think last I saw, down to the south and east. So, I mean, it's, for the folks who haven't been paying any attention to what we've been saying, the worst of this wind is going to be late afternoon, early evening. And I'll say it again. I don't think we're anywhere near hurricane force winds here. I think we're, 50, gusts to 55 to 60. Now, usually the Skyway closes, 40 to 45-ish. So I'm sure there will be times as high as the Skyway is, because the wind's going to be higher up there than it will be down on the surface, that, you will see some periods of time that it's going to close. I think it will. I think there'll be a couple hour period where we're going to be looking at stuff like that late afternoon, early evening. But, the farther north you are, the more the wind's going to be. So Citrus County will be much higher. And, talking about what we said earlier, I do think the way the track is shaping up right now, it does look like that worst of the wind, the extreme wind, would be east of Tallahassee. I mean, I'm not going to tell people that they're not going to skate. They're going to be a lot of trees down. They're going to be a lot of damage in that way. But the worst of it, which is what I think everybody's afraid of, I think Taylor County might very well be how this ends up playing. It's a Dahlia part 2.
All right, let's go to phones. If you want to ask Dennis Phillips a question, 800-990-1047. Phones are loaded right now, but when we hang up with someone, try to sneak in and grab one of the open lines. 800-990-1047. Dennis Phillips live, MJ Morning Show edition. Eve in Palm Harbor, right up in Dennis's neck of the woods. Eve, are you a neighbor of Dennis by any chance?
No, but I know where his house is.
Yeah, well, because he's got the Christmas display, the Halloween display, he's got the 4th of July display, he's got the Flag Day display, he's got the Arbor Day display, he's got everything going on.
Is your lawn littered right now with Halloween crap?
No, I decided not to put it up until after the storm.
Yeah, my neighbors put all their crap out last weekend, and the post guy's like, "You're gonna have a bunch of new Halloween decorations tomorrow."
Guess what? There are 17 of the giant 13-foot skeletons and the Grim Reaper. They're all different new the giant Home Depot Halloween decorations. They were all up and now they're all down in my neighborhood. So people took them down. All right, Eve, what's your question for Dennis Phillips?
How much wind speed would it take to blow away a human?
Hold on, say it. You dropped out. Say it again. Ask again.
How much wind speed would it take to blow away a human?
Well, I don't think we're going to be anywhere near that. I mean, if you watch the Weather Channel sometimes, even like it's 55, oh, I'm flying away. Oh. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have too much to worry about. I mean, if I will tell you though, Cat 4 into Cat 5, I've been in a Cat 4 almost to a 5 when I was chasing storms back in with Hurricane Rita back in Beaumont, Texas, and when you're at about 135 to 140, it is absolutely hard to stand up straight. I mean, it does blow you around.
Right.
But
hey, there's that video of Al Roker somewhat, I don't know, 15, 18 years ago where Al Roker got like blown over, right?
Yeah. I've never seen anyone actually just being blown down the street.
And Dennis, where the hell is Jim Cantori from the Weather Channel right now? Do we know where he actually is?
Yeah, he went to Tallahassee. Yeah, he went to Tallahassee yesterday.
Right.
It started in Port Richey, and he went to Tallahassee, and now he's probably going to move. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if they bump their people a little bit to the east as well.
Yep.
Again, there's so much less stuff up there in terms of population when you get 40 miles east of Tallahassee. And if that's the way it plays out, that's great news. And I'll say it again. I don't disagree that a Taylor County landfall, to me, looks every bit as likely. The Hurricane Center is really slow in making changes. They don't like to make big steps. They like to take baby steps. They'll move them a little bit at a time because they don't want to have to move it right, then move it back left. And, they're very conservative in that. So while they're on the west side of the guidance tracking, I would not be surprised at all at 11 o'clock if they bump this track a little bit more to the east. But they don't want people in Tallahassee like, oh, well, you know what, it's okay, I'm going to go back. Yeah. And then something happens.
All right, Ed in Largo. Ed, you're on the MJ Morning Show. What's your question for Dennis Phillips?
Hi, Dennis. This is Ed in Largo. You are the greatest. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, can you please tell me where is the eye of the hurricane located in reference to our Largo area along the East Coast? I just see this hurricane always sitting down there by Key West. Is that where it's at now?
Yeah, it is. It's way down in the south. It will end up being about, I would say, about 110 to 120 miles, 100 to 110 miles west of Largo when it passes tonight around 7 or 8 o'clock. So because it's far enough west, we're not expecting hurricane force winds in Largo.
Ed, thanks for the call. Jacob in Valrico. I think, is this our good friend Jacob?
We'll find out.
Yeah. Hey, Jacob, it is. It's Jacob 2 times.
Hi.
Jacob, welcome back to the MJ Morning Show, Jacob.
Hey, MJ Kelly. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. What's your question for Dennis?
Hey, Dennis. Hey, Dennis Phillips, if I'm in Valrico, Florida, which I am, what conditions can I expect here in Valrico?
You're going to get 40, 45, maybe gust to 50. You'll be perfectly fine.
There you go. Jacob, always great to hear from you. Dottie in Spring Hill. That opens up a line, by the way. 800-990-1047. 800-990-1047. Questions for Dennis Phillips. This doesn't happen often. To be able to call in and I'll conference call you right with Dennis Phillips from ABC Action News. Dottie in Spring Hill, what's your question for Dennis?
I want to know about what time it's going to hit, say around Tampa or Spring Hill area.
All right, so her phone's not great, Dennis. What time, timing for Tampa and Spring Hill?
Yeah, tropical storm force winds. The worst of this wind for y'all will be between around 5 in the afternoon and 7 o'clock tonight. And again, when I'm looking at the numbers, the updated numbers right now. So right now it's 320 miles southwest of Tampa. That's the latest. It's 320 miles southwest of Tampa. It's moving north-northeast at 12 miles an hour, and the maximum winds are 100 miles an hour. So that's kind of where it's located right now. It is up to 100, so it's Category 2 now, and the pressure's dropped quite a bit. So, again, in terms of timing, yeah, I would say that biggest thing to remember, hurricane force winds extend about 65 miles from the center. If this is going to be 100 miles west of us, we're not going to get hurricane winds. I mean, I think that's the thing people need to listen to, that yes, where it makes landfall is going to be a major hurricane. We are not going to see the impacts of a major hurricane. We're just not.
Now, Dennis, I heard you address this specific question on TV last night. Doug has that question. Doug is in Lakeland. Doug, your question for Dennis Phillips.
Good morning.
How's it going?
I'm here in Polk County in Lakeland. I was just wondering what our worst case scenario may be over here.
Yeah, you guys got well, I don't want to say nothing to worry about, but you are going to have 35 to 45 winds. You got nothing to worry about in Polk County. You don't.
Well,
I mean,
it's a gust or it's a sustained wind.
Those are gusts.
Yeah.
I mean, I think tropical storm force winds extend 250 miles out from the center. So you're going to get some tropical storm force winds, and maybe even 50 on a gust. But I mean, think about an afternoon thunderstorm.
Yep.
You get 50 mile an hour winds with an afternoon thunderstorm. Anybody in Polk County, Hardy, DeSoto Highlands, the impact is going to be pretty minimal overall.
Thanks for the call, Doug. Appreciate it. Polk County, a lot of folks listening in Polk County concerned. And again, the effects are not going to be massive for Polk County. Stormy, look at this name. Hey, Dennis, we've got a Stormy calling in from Tampa.
Come on.
Nice.
And it's a guy? Stormy, Stormy, is that on your birth certificate?
And now my real name's Stevie.
Okay, Stevie Stormy. All right, what's your question in Tampa for Dennis Phillips?
Hey, you keep saying we're going to lose power, but if we don't have wind, how are we going to lose power?
Well, there's going to be wind.
Yeah.
There's just not going to be hurricane force winds. I mean, let me be clear. When I say we're not going to have sustained hurricane force winds, that means that we're not going to have 75 mile an hour winds that are going to last continuously for 60 seconds. That's what sustained winds mean. Gusts, you guys know what a gust is you're outside and a storm comes and boom, it gusts for a couple of seconds and then it stops. We will have gusts up to 55. Now, if you're closer to the coast, you're going to see gusts 60, 65. We lose power in an afternoon thunderstorm, and afternoon thunderstorms can go 50, 55. So we're going to have wind. We're just not going to have sustained hurricane force winds.
Stormy,
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Hey, and everybody asks you that. Can I walk my dog?
Yep, you can walk your dog or your armadillo or anything else. I mean, we have some pretty crazy questions.
And can I take my cruise? Can I take my cruise also?
Yeah, Stormy, you know the drill. Thank you, Stormy. So yeah, Dennis, you always get the same questions. Is my flight going to be canceled? Yes, your flight at Tampa International Airport today is canceled.
Canceled.
But you know what was interesting is people were asking about going to Disney, and I don't know if it's still the truth. It was last night.
It is.
Not only was Disney open, they're open 2 hours later.
Yeah. So Disney was supposed to close at 6, and Disney's going to stay open till 8 o'clock tonight. But no, Dennis gets the same questions. Can I walk my dog at 4:23 in the afternoon? Is my flight going to be canceled? Is my cruise leaving the port of Tampa? All these same questions. Hey, let me go to the power outage, and I'm curious about this. You guys have a product, a graphic that predicts power outages like low risk, medium risk. What generates that? Explain that software that you guys show on TV.
I mean, it's an IBM product. The weather company that we use was bought by IBM quite a while ago, and they have some AI software that it actually, and heck if I know how they do it. I mean, clearly it's obviously based on wind gusts and when they expect the highest wind gusts, and those power outages, the numbers come out exactly when the wind gusts are higher. So my guess is they probably just look at when there's 55 to 60 or higher, and they do it accordingly. I mean, it makes sense.
And the immediate Tampa Bay area, it looked like it was all in yellow, meaning low risk for any significant power outages.
Yep. Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I think it's a bunch of eye candy. I don't think there's much validity to it. I really don't. I think, obviously, the moderate to higher risk is going to be where the winds are heavier, longer, and that would be more northern counties.
Listen, we've had like a small tree branch hit a power line in my neighborhood, it takes the power out for an hour, till Tico gets out there. So who the hell knows?
Yeah.
All right, Dennis, let's grab some more calls. Your phones are absolutely loaded. Dennis Phillips, ABC Action News chief meteorologist, is on with us here on the MJ Morning Show on 104.7 FM, Q105. Annette is in Spring Hill. This is an important question. Annette, go ahead. You're on with Dennis Phillips.
So my concern is the storm surge. My dad lives in Hudson, right off of 19, and he's in Zone A, and he never leaves. And I see the storm surge on the news is, I think, 6 to 8 or something.
Yeah. Did he flood in Adalia?
No.
If he didn't flood in Adalia, he's probably not going to have a massive amount of flooding. I am a little concerned about Pasco County North. I am. I think I'll never forget when I first started working here back in the mid '90s. There was a tropical storm, Josephine, and I went up to Hudson. I was right on US 19 and went up to Hudson, and there was water on 19 that was thigh high. I mean, the water really can come in. And yeah, I do think that, I guess ultimately my question is, has he flooded where he is in any storm in the past 20 or 30 years?
We've only been here for about 8.
Oh, okay. All right. So you weren't there for that. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the surge map right now, and I will tell you, MJ, you know about this too. I mean, there are products out there that is really helpful for people who want to know their exact locations. Because you all know, I mean, there are some areas that are facing west, some that are facing southwest. This product is pretty interesting. If you go to the NHC page, nhc.noaa.gov, you can literally click on your neighborhood, and it shows exactly how much water is expected in the neighborhood. I mean, I'm sitting here looking as I'm talking to you. I'm kind of looking at Hudson here. To me, I'm thinking it's more on the low end in most spots, but in Hudson, it is probably they're probably looking at 6 feet or higher. I mean, I do think Hudson's going to get some water coming in. Now, the question is, how far in does it go? How far is he from the water?
He is literally right off of 19 by Arapika.
Okay, he's on Arapika. Okay. All right, well,
he's
if he's going to get some water,
he's right on 19 by Arapika.
Okay, yeah. I mean, look, like I said, I have seen that area flood before. It was back with Josephine. I would not be surprised if he gets some water. I don't know his elevation. I don't know the specifics, but yeah, I think anybody Pasco County North, even Crystal Beach, Ozona in Pinellas County North, they're gonna get some water. I mean,
my buddy Craig, the tire guy's right next to the railroad tracks on the jogging trail in Ozona. So hey, Craig, look out. Hey, Dennis, can you hang? Can I get a quick break in? The phones are absolutely loaded for you.
Yeah, I can, and then I gotta get to work.
All right,
so,
you know what? Hold on a second. All right, I'll tell you. I won't take the break. Let me extend the break here. Let me just grab a few more calls, and we'll let Dennis Phillips roll. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right, I'll push the break off. Thanks for the call, Annette. Appreciate it. Let's grab Tony in Tampa. Tony, you're on the MJ Morning Show. Dennis Phillips live on the MJ Morning Show. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Dennis. I am Tony from Tampa, and I'm like a little child. I would like to know what is the basic cause of your hurricane and seriousness, and I was never able to understand that and why, and also what is a surge and how does it develop?
Okay, it's a good question. So when you think about flooding that happened with Debbie last month, that was not surge. That was just rainfall. That was too much rainwater coming in a short period of time, and that's called freshwater flooding. So that is just flooding from too much rain. Surge is literally the storm pushing water as it's moving toward you, and when that water gets to where you are, like if it's in the bay or it comes up against the solid source, that water is going to rise. I mean, imagine like in a bathtub, when you push the water out and it goes up to the side and it goes up a little bit and then comes back down. Surge is the exact same thing.
When the water building up.
Correct.
That's what causes a surge. Okay,
That
thank
is
you.
what causes the surge. Mm-hmm.
All right, Tony, thanks.
Okay.
Good question, buddy. And final call here, and we got to let Dennis roll because, Dennis, you need to get to the studio, correct?
Yeah, I got to get in.
All right, last call, Diana in Brooksville. Diana, MJ Morning Show with Dennis Phillips live. Yes, Diana.
Good morning. Good morning, Dennis. Can you guys
Hey,
hear
Diana,
me?
how are you? Yeah, I can.
Good, thank you. I live in Hernando County. We're below Citrus, above Spring Hill, and Weeki Wachee, where the mermaids are. We're at least 10 miles north of that and about 3 miles in. So what should we expect?
Yeah, if you're 3 miles in, I don't think you're going to have to worry about surge. Looking at your area right now on the surge map, you're going to see winds this afternoon, late this afternoon, but even more this evening, gusting to probably 60, 55 to 60, similar to what you had with Idalia last year.
Okay.
So I don't, I'm not worried for water with you. And again, for the folks who are just tuning in, I'm just, look, it's going to be a windy day. There's going to be some tree branches down. There's going to be some power outages from the wind, but we are not going to see winds of 75 miles an hour for any kind of extended period of time. Citrus County might get 65 to 70 later tonight, but for most of our area, people are going to and if you're not on the water, people are going to wake up tomorrow and say, wasn't that bad. It's just another one of those storms. That's what most people will think because the winds are not the big story. And you're going to get some gusty winds for a few hours, much like you did with Idalia, and that'll be the end of it. The biggest concern for our area is obviously the surge. It's where areas will flood because you can't do anything about that water. It comes in. In terms of landfalling, as we said earlier on today, the NHC track is still closer to Tallahassee, but I'm inclined. The GFS and the Euro are looking at Taylor County, and that seems to be a pretty reasonable expectation. If that's the case, then the worst of this is going to be east of Tallahassee. They're going to
and it's going to spare. If it goes east, if they do update the official track with the 11, as some of the models are pushing it east, it kind of spares Tallahassee the worst of it now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dennis, by the way, I'm going to let you go, but I'm on Verizon Wireless. I just got an emergency alert. I've got, the box came up. I've got the flashing red triangle with the exclamation point. Emergency alert, extreme, complete evacuations for Pinellas Zone A, mobile homes now. So
yeah, that was issued yesterday.
Yep.
And I guess they're just reminding people, if you haven't gone yet, you still have time. And you do, by the way, because that surge isn't going to be really, really bad, or the worst that it's going to be, at least put it that way, until later on this evening, like late this evening, between maybe 9 and 1 a.m. 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. is when I think we're going to see the second high tide, and the storm will be past us. We'll have an onshore flow. So there's still time. I don't think the driving conditions will be really that bad until late this afternoon when the winds start to pick up as it gets closer. Because, like we said, it's still a couple hundred, 300 miles southwest of Tampa. And the wind field, hurricane winds extend about 70 miles out. So this stays more than 70 miles, 80 miles offshore, which it will. We're not going to get hurricane winds.
All right, Dennis, what time do you hit TV? When are you making first appearance today?
We're just kind of rotate. We got everybody in.
Yep.
So, I'll be in later this morning. It'll be me and Shay and Greg and Jason. So, yeah, we'll be on all day and all night.
Dennis, my team here, all of our listeners appreciate your access and availability here on the MJ Morning Show.
My pleasure. And, we'll be on. We'll be doing some live streaming throughout the day, too. So, feel free to drop me a text, or if you have any information you want, you guys, you know how to get me.
All right, Dennis, we'll talk to you tomorrow morning for a follow-up. Have a great day.
All right, see you guys. Bye.
See ya.
Dennis Phillips, over half an hour.
Wow.
Fest, don't be obnoxious.
Dennis is a busy guy.
I know. Over half an hour straight with Dennis Phillips.
Tell you what, man, you don't push back that commercial break for many people. It was really nice.
I push that sucker back. You like the video? If so, go ahead and click like, share, subscribe, and get more.